Now, do not consider pushing the pension panic button until you've watched this video right through to the end. Now, there have been many different versions written about the pension story, some good and some not so good. And today I'm going to help reveal the untold pension story so you can make up your own mind as to whether the humble pension is either the villain or the hero of the story. So, if you want to create a future retirement which is a continuation of your success during your working life and not the end of it, welcome to this pension video, which aims to be both a journey of empowerment and of foresight, where we're not just going to be discussing pensions but establishing your future legacy. And after watching this video, there's going to be no more days of confusing terms, confusing jargon or fine print, but instead it's going to be the clarity, opportunity and a way forward to take those next important steps. Welcome back to the channel, and if this is your first time, a very warm welcome to the Economies channel, where together we're going to be learning the language of money and wealth. This channel is also dedicated to mastering money and to making financial wisdom available to all. My name is Simon and I'm a chartered financial planner here in the UK. In previous videos we've covered getting started to create your own emergency fund, maybe for the first time, to make sure that your family have appropriate levels of insurance and protection, and also giving you some options to help you with your savings journey too. But if you missed them, don't worry, please follow the link and watch them back at your leisure. Now, if you are subscribed to the channel, thank you and welcome. You are going to be already receiving daily short videos about personal finance, investing and pensions in general, with some fun and some quirky facts to get you thinking and hopefully smiling, and I'm going to highlight some of the most watched pension facts below. But before we get into all of that, I'm going to put up a quick disclaimer just to state that this video is for education and entertainment purposes only, and it shouldn't be misconstrued or misunderstood as financial advice. So, having watched similar pension videos on YouTube before, they can be a bit hard going with lots of stats and lots of numbers. So hopefully I'm going to split this video into two parts, and we should get a quick change of scenery as we move through the video. And if you watch to the very end, I'm going to offer you a valuable resource in the form of a flipbook, so please keep watching to the very end. I'm also going to cover some of the most asked questions that my clients ask me about their retirement, and hopefully this is going to shed some light on the answers for you. Now, here are some of the most watched facts about pensions on our YouTube channel, and please bear in mind that there are approximately 33 million people currently working in the UK. Some or most of those may also need to help plan for their future. About 30% of the people who are currently retired wish they have saved a little bit more and started a little bit earlier. Most people in retirement underestimate their life expectancy, and we'll talk about that later, and how long that their fund needs to last for. About half of people in retirement, they underestimate the cost of providing the retirement they have earned the right to enjoy and what that may cost in reality. Unsurprisingly, about 3/4 of the public are overwhelmed by financial and technical jargon. More worryingly, about 1/4 think that the state pension is going to be enough to live on, even if that this is just about 30% of the average wage in the UK. Here's a quick question for you. Could you live on just £10,600 a year to cover everything? About 90% of employees who do contribute into their workplace pension only pay the bare minimum that is required, even if they've got additional and very valuable matched employer contributions available to them. And this is one of my personal favourites. People are likely to spend more on eating out than they do saving for their own retirement. What does that tell you about how we feel about saving? About 2/3 of people in retirement believe that their money is going to run out in retirement. And finally, about 40%, just 40% of people feel confident about their pension knowledge. And this is obviously something we're trying to aim to address in this video. So as a reference point and a general guide, let's just have a quick look at the average pension savings in the UK. Now, according to the Office for National Statistics, the average pension fund by age roughly is as follows. To age 24, it's about £2,700. To age 34, it's about £9,300. To age 44, it's about £30,000. To age 54, it's about £75,500. And to age 64, just before their retirement age, the average savings in the UK is £107,300. So here's another quick question for you. Do you know what the combined values of all your pensions are? And do you know how close you are to having these amounts already saved? Now let me tell you a quick story about how pensions developed in the UK. I mean, once upon a time in the late 19th century, the concept of pensions began in the UK. It was a simple idea. You grow old, you stop working, you receive a steady income either from the government or from your employer. However, there have been many scandals which have brought the pensions industry under the spotlight, and all for the wrong reasons. One such case was the Robert Maxwell and the Mirror Group case, or more recently the Equitable Life case, amongst others. So we fast forward to today, and now we've got an enormous range of pension options open to us, each with its own charm and, well, it's just a little bit of confusion which can cause paralysis by analysis. Put simply, pensions are designed to provide a regular income from the rest of your life, and this is going to be the solid foundation, the financial foundation that you need in retirement. So you save today, you get some tax relief added, you'll receive an employee contribution as well if you're lucky, you mix all that together with decades of patience, and there you go. Now you can secure a comfortable lifestyle for you and your family for your golden years. I mean, how hard can it be? Okay, cut, that's it. Video's over. Now wait, now not to spoil the party, but not all pensions are created equal. Let's go back in time to the budget in 2014, when the then Chancellor of the Exchequer announced in the House of Commons the biggest shake-up in the pensions world in almost a century, as he unveiled plans which were going to affect about 13 million people who were already invested in defined contribution pensions. It only took a few minutes, but he famously said that people will now no longer be forced to buy an annuity, which is essentially an insurance product that provides a guaranteed income for life. Instead, people will be allowed to take as much or as little of their pension pots as they wish, and they could spend it exactly how they saw fit to do so. I mean, what could go wrong? So suddenly, turning 55 felt like hitting the financial jackpot, and there was a lot of talk about people buying Italian sports cars, thanks to the pensions minister at the time called Steve Webb, basically saying that people could spend their pension on whatever they wanted, including a Lamborghini. Now you fast forward 10 years to now, and we've all got the freedom to access our pension pots with the option to either buy an annuity, we can go for the flexible income drawdown option, or we can even grab the 25% as a tax-free cash lump sum, or mix and match of all three. Now, choosing between an annuity and income drawdown can be like deciding between a predictable romantic movie where you already know and can predict the ending, and a thrilling choose your own adventure type book where the outcome is a little bit more uncertain. An annuity gives you guaranteed income for life with no surprises and no plot twists. But income drawdown, well, that's more like you're directing your own financial movie. You've got more control, but there's also a lot more uncertainty, a lot more volatility, and a lot more unpredictability. Now let's take a quick break before we get into crunching some of those limits and those allowances. Okay, I'm back. So in this section, we're only going to be focused on defined contribution pensions. That is where we know the level of contributions going into the pension, but the level of income that's going to come out at retirement is uncertain, and this is largely going to depend on investment growth. Now we are going to be covering that subject in future videos, but if you feel that this video has been useful so far, please consider hitting the like button and subscribing. So who's a pension for? Well, in short, everybody. You can start a pension for a child under the age of 18, and then you can continue to contribute to your own pension and still get tax relief all the way up to age 75. So how do they work? Well, from age 18, you can contribute up to 100% of your income up to the current annual allowance of £60,000 gross per year. What that means is if you earn the UK average of £35,400 a year, that's what you can contribute gross into your pension scheme. You're going to receive tax relief at your marginal rate of income tax, but don't worry, if you've got no relevant earnings at all, for example, if you're a stay-at-home parent, you can still receive, because you're still entitled to receive 20% tax relief up to a maximum contribution of £3,600 gross per tax year. So as a quick summary, with tax relief, a basic rate taxpayer will get 20% tax relief, a higher rate taxpayer will get 40% tax relief, and a lucky additional rate taxpayer will get 45% tax relief. Basic tax relief of 20% is added at source, and any additional tax relief that you're entitled to, that needs to be requested separately via self-assessment. So make sure you speak to a qualified advisor or your accountant who will help you complete the forms. The gross contributions are then invested into a tax advantage pension, and that allows the fund to grow a lot more quickly, especially over the longer term. Now I do get clients asking me how to calculate the tax relief, so here's a worked example. I'm going to assume that you want to contribute £100 a month into your pension, and you're a basic rate taxpayer entitled to 20% tax relief. So we get the £100, we times that by 20%, that gives you £20, you add the two together, and that means you pay £120 into your pension, right? No, that is not how you do it. So let me show you. If you're going to contribute £100 into the pension, we will take that £100 and we will divide it by the 0.8. That gives you £25, you add them together, and your gross contribution is £125. With a higher rate tax example, the £100 is divided by 0.6, that gives you £66.67 in tax relief. Add them together and the total gross contribution is £166.67. And tax relief on your contributions is like getting a bonus incentive from the government every time you decide to invest in your pension. It's almost like free money. There is another allowance that we need to talk about. It's called a lifetime allowance, and we need to talk about that very briefly. And this was always the amount that you could save into your pension without incurring any additional taxes, and this is currently in the process of being abolished. Now the standard lifetime allowance was £1,073,100, but there have always been various protections available to those who have had higher levels of pension saving, especially when the lifetime allowance was reduced over time to offer additional protection to those people. Now the lifetime allowance is in the process of being abolished in April 2024, but governments of all colours and all stripes, they cannot help themselves. They need to meddle with pension rules, which always seems to add levels of confusion and complexity, so the current status of a lifetime allowance may well change again in the future. Now workplace pensions have been available for employees for a long time, but sometimes they were either considered to be an expensive perk by the employer or perhaps an unnecessary cost for the employee. So therefore, the take-up rates were always fairly low. And all that changed in October 2012 when auto-enrolment started. So up until that point, about 56% of employees were members of a workplace pension scheme, and that has absolutely surged to about 90% in 2021. To give you an idea of size, workplace pension assets were about 86 billion in 2012, and that has increased significantly to 115 billion in 2021, and that continues to rise. Now, according to the Department of Work and Pensions, the DWP, about 10 million employees have started saving into a pension since auto-enrolment started. that underscores how successful this has actually been. And that's going to mean better standard of livings, which have been projected for millions more families in the UK. There have been absolutely huge strides made in the pensions landscape and in the pensions and retirement culture overall, which is going to mean better outcomes for all those involved. If you don't know much about your own workplace pension, as a minimum, you should be contributing about 4% of your wage. You'll get an additional 1% in tax relief, which we talked about earlier, from the government, and your employee should be making a minimum contribution of 3%. You add it all together and your gross contribution should be about 8% per year. But like all things surrounding pensions rules and legislation, this is also under review and we may need to contribute more in the future. Now, of course, there are many employees out there who are a lot more generous than meeting just the bare minimum required. So please check with your employer or your HR department or even your monthly payslip just to understand how much you are actually contributing into your workplace pension, because everything makes a difference. Now, if you are contributing into your workplace pension, you may be using a scheme called the net pay method. Now, this is quite confusing, but it's actually where your contribution is made before any deduction of tax is applied. But many employers will also allow you to make pension contributions via something called salary sacrifice or a salary exchange format. And quite frankly, this is the most efficient way to contribute into your pension. And this is how it works. If you choose to take up that option, both you and your employer will agree to reduce your salary by the value of the gross pension contribution. And your employer will then take that and invest that into your pension along with their contribution into the scheme as well. And what that means in reality is now you're effectively earning a lower salary. Both you and your employer are also going to pay lower national insurance contributions, which often means your take-home payer could actually be higher. Now, what you might not know is an employer has to pay a national insurance contribution of 13.8% for your wage. What you can do by salary sacrifice is ask your employer if some of that saving could actually be paid into your pension as well. Now, they don't have to do it, but it's definitely worthwhile asking. Now, clearly, salary sacrifice is not going to be right for everyone, especially those who've got a death in service life insurance policy with their employer, which is based on their gross salary. So if the worst should happen, that means your beneficiaries would get less payout. Or, as you've got a lower salary, it might also affect the amount you can borrow for a mortgage. So let's talk a little bit about longevity and life expectancy. Now, when I took my first professional exam way back in 1993, the average life expectancy then was about 76 years old. But now, today, it's closer to 84 years old. Now, to illustrate that, I'm going to pop up a quick graphic to show the life expectancy as issued by the Office of National Statistics website. Now, to keep things simple, I've used my age as an example, but you can clearly see here that a man aged 55 in good health has an average life expectancy of around 84 years old. Now, according to the Office of National Statistics and this chart, I've also got a 25% chance of reaching age 92, a 10% chance of reaching age 97, and a 4% chance of reaching age 100. Wow. Now, of course, none of us are average, but it does beg the question, do we all now need to plan for a much longer retirement than we originally thought? Do we have to plan for 30 years, 35 years, or perhaps even longer? Now, despite that absolutely remarkable change in life expectancy, it does present a host of problems and challenges which do need to be addressed, especially when we're thinking about retirement. For example, our pension saving now needs to last a lot longer and stretch a lot further, and without careful planning, your pension could run out during your lifetime. So perhaps instead of thinking about life expectancy, perhaps you need to think a little bit more about wealth expectancy. And as a result of people living longer, The minimum age that you can access and withdraw money from your pension is now 55 years old, but that is also increasing to 57 years old in April 2028. What that means is if you were born after April 1971, this is going to affect you and you may need to plan accordingly. Now, how much is enough is one of the consistently most asked questions that I've had in the last 10 plus years. So, how much do you need in retirement? Well, before we get into that, I'm going to take a quick break and have a quick change of scenery. Okay, so the question was, how much do we need in retirement? Now, clearly this is going to be different for everyone. Everyone's going to have their own magic number as to how much is going to be enough based on the standard of living that they want in their retirement. If you're unsure of what your retirement might cost, here's a useful guide from the Pension and Lifetime Savings Association, and I'm going to include a link in the description below. Now, as you can see in this graphic, the estimated cost of a moderate retirement for a couple has recently increased by about 34% to £43,100 a year. That's in the pink column on the graphic. Now, this increase of 34%, that's not only due to the cost of living crisis and inflation that we're all living through at the moment, but it's also about how we perceive retirement. Many of us want to thrive in retirement and not simply survive. This means we're all going to be looking for more fulfilling experiences to enjoy, not just staying at home, not just being frugal and careful about how we spend our money. Now, these retirement living standards are aimed at cutting through all the ambiguity that surrounds retirement planning. The PLSA have come out and stated how they want to help savers think in a very practical way about the kind of lifestyle they might lead in retirement. Now, in this example, I've used a couple who are looking for a moderate standard of living. So let's just look at those numbers together. The PLSA research shows that this couple would need £43,100 a year. That's net after tax. Now, that's going to be living outside major cities in the UK, because obviously living in a major city, the cost of living is likely to be a lot higher. Now, for that amount of money, what sort of standard of living do you think this couple could expect? Well, this is a very useful breakdown. They've allowed £500 to maintain your property for both maintenance and decorating each year. That will also include spending about £100 a week on the main food shop and about £60 per week spent on food outside of the home. And that could be sandwiches in your lunch break, for example. It also allows for £20 a week on takeaways and about £100 a month just to eat out at a restaurant together. This amount of money will allow you to replace a 3-year-old car, so a fairly new second-hand car, every 7 years, plus an additional £20 a month on taxis and about £100 a year each on rail fares. Regarding holidays, the research says that you'll be able to afford 2 weeks in Europe in a 3-star all-inclusive resort, as well as having a long weekend somewhere in the UK. It's also going to allow you basic broadband and up to 2 streaming services as well. Regarding clothes, about £1,500 per couple each year will be allowed to be spent on clothes and footwear. £30 a month, or about £360 a year for gifts for birthdays, and the same amount for gifts at Christmas too. And it also allows £200 a year for charity donations, which we know are important to a lot of people. It also allows for about £1,000 a year to support family members such as grandchildren for those little trips out and those little treats. Now, does that sound like the type of retirement that you're looking for? Does that feel like an accurate breakdown of what a modern retirement might look like? Or are you surprised or shocked what standard of living 43,000 a year would actually provide. Now, to add some more numbers to this to make it a bit more realistic, in this example I'm going to assume that this couple both receive the maximum state pension open to them, which is currently about £10,600 per year each. So in this tax year to April 2024, that's going to come to £21,200 gross. Now, if you remember the figures we talked about earlier, the cost of providing a moderate retirement for a couple was £43,100 net per year, which is grossed up, allowing for income tax deductions to £47,500 per year. You do some quick maths and that will leave us with an annual income shortfall of just over £26,000 a year, and that's going to need to be met from somewhere. Now remember, we talked about life expectancy earlier. This could have to be met for 30 or 35 years or longer. So how on earth do they do that? Well, I'm going to address that in the next video in the coming weeks. You're also going to have to allow for the effects of inflation to maintain your purchasing power over time. So the amount that you need in retirement now, projected out, is likely to be a lot higher. Now, I can already imagine and visualize some of the comments in the section below. And yes, I know it isn't quite that simple, but this is going to act as a very, very basic guide to help some of the audience start to visualize the range and the cost of providing for a certain standard of living in retirement, how much you might need, what the current level of your current funding is, and what that shortfall might look like and for how long. But clearly, everyone's retirement plan is going to be completely different and personal to them. So you might need a completely different level of income, which could be a lot lower or a lot higher than the example we've gone through. We mentioned earlier that you will be entitled to take up to 25% of your fund as a tax-free lump sum. But any pension income withdrawal after that is going to be taxable. And that's going to be added to your income from all sources and taxed accordingly. Now, another question I hear a lot is, will my pension die with me? Now, it's important to mention that you can leave any unused pension wealth to a nominated beneficiary, and that means your legacy will always remain intact. Now, life is unpredictable, so it makes sense to ensure that you nominate a beneficiary and keep those nominations up to date should the worst happen. Now, what we haven't mentioned in detail is the state pension, which is a powerful foundation for all of our retirement plans, and I am going to be covering that in a more detailed video next week. So I hope you've enjoyed our whistle-stop journey through the pension world, and I hope you can agree that by planning ahead for retirement, you're going to be the hero of your own story. So if you like what you see and you like what you hear, please give the video a thumbs up and hit the like button. Now, we are going to be creating videos weekly, so please subscribe and hit the notification bell so you don't miss out on any important content. And finally, this is your channel, this is your voice. So if you've had a positive experience or even a negative experience around money, or you're concerned about your pension planning, then please let me know in the comments below. Thank you so much for your patience, and see you all next week.